Query and Company.
Guess what day it is?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It's hump day.
Hump day! Hump day! Hump day! Woo-hoo!
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to.
And, Eddie, not only is it hump day, but it's as though, and obviously I don't mean permanently, but at least for this week, that, like, have we kind of gotten over the hump on the unbearably hot temperatures? Maybe I'm thinking that because I was in Nashville over the weekend, but, it's been pretty hot the last couple of days, but it's supposed to be, like, nice and relaxed, right?
Why?
Why what?
It's like a perfect game in baseball. You don't talk about it.
What, the fact that, like, do you think because I mentioned that now all of a sudden it's going to be 105 degrees today?
It's going to be like 105 degrees tomorrow now.
Nah. Now, maybe this weekend. NASCAR weekend is here. Brickyard 400 coming up this weekend. I'm curious of this. And I know that, now hang on, does my voice sound, let me ask you also, Eddie, when we're just starting the program here. I use a personalized windscreen.
I know.
And I haven't put it yet on the microphone.
Okay.
Will my voice sound different once I put it on there?
I don't think it will sound any different, Jake. I'm not going to say what you call yourself because I think that's weird to call another man that, so I'm not going to say it.
What do I call myself?
I'm not going to say it.
What's the first letter?
And well, it's 2 words. A-S.
Abundantly sexy?
No.
Okay. I don't know then, but hang on. My windscreen is now on. Does that sound any different?
No.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Actually, good morning, I guess, technically speaking still, to everybody. My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison, the other voice you just heard. It is Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. I'd like to A.S. This is what I call myself?
Yes.
I don't know what that would be, actually.
I think it's our band name with Nick Gardner. Between you, me, and him from the Butler Radio Network.
Right. You're still losing me here, but I haven't woken up yet today, right? I'm a little bit
concerning.
Yeah, I know.
Kevin was very apologetic for getting out a minute late to start from the morning show exit and starting our show late. I was like, oh, that's fine. It's 1 less minute to Jake and another minute for him to wake up.
That's correct. That is indeed correct. But with Brickyard weekend here, and there's a lot to talk about today. Debbie Antonelli is going to join us on the program. Zane Smith going to join us from NASCAR. That's going to be in the 12 o'clock hour. He's had some really interesting things to say lately about a brewing rivalry, so to speak, in NASCAR. He has been very outspoken of his displeasure of one of NASCAR's young rising stars as well. So we'll get into that coming up at the 12 o'clock hour. But I am very intrigued, and I don't mean it as a knock at all, because it's not a dissertation about NASCAR nor about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but rather simply about just the sports menu in general. Because I go back to, and it's hard to explain, it's hard to illustrate how massive this weekend event was in the early years. And everything, literally everything in life, no matter what you're talking about, it's always hard to replicate the initial burst of something. It's really difficult. I mean, give me, Eddie, an example. This would kind of be a theme for today. Things that, whether it be a product, whether it be a food item, whether it be a band, a song, whatever. Things that came on like a brush fire and were literally everywhere you turned, and then as quickly as they hit the scene, all of a sudden one day, just as fast a snap of the fingers, you're like, wait, what happened?
Fidget spinners.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Those things are kind of cool, though. Right?
I remember they were like a huge thing, and then poof,
right
off the face of the earth.
Yes. And obviously that was not the case with the Brickyard 400 per se, because it had Massive success for a very long time. And the tire issue, the tire debacle, for those that don't remember, there was a year where, and it would have been a dozen years into it, when NASCAR came and they missed the tire compound. And so as a result, the cars had to come in every 12 laps or whatever it was to check on the tires and test them. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. But at least in that form of it. And then they went to the road course and they came back, and I think that's put some juice back into it. But the early, and part of it too, was this coexisting rise between NASCAR and IMS. And let me go back to, I guess, the way that this all began. In 1994, when the Brickyard 400 first came to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it had been talked about since as early as 1992. And at that time, NASCAR was running essentially late-night tape delay on ESPN, or piggybacking off of the racing aspect of Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN. And IndyCar racing, open-wheel racing, was the preeminent racing form in the United States. You were coming off of, Nigel Mansell was coming over as a Formula One world champion and running in kart, and the Indy 500 was doing massive television ratings, and you still had, Rick Mears racing and the twilight of the Unsers and all the big names, right? Mario, all of it. And NASCAR was a regionalized sport to a great extent. And then once it was discussed that NASCAR could perhaps go and run at the Cathedral of Speed, the most famous race course in the United States, at least internationally speaking, the most famous for certain, it rose NASCAR, it legitimized NASCAR to a great extent. And when they ran that first Brickyard 400 in 1994, and I think there was a lot of question with people, there was a lot of hesitation and curiosity. And I think the first year, so much of the attendance was a mix of NASCAR fans that were saying, bucket list item, I get to see my favorite cars and stars on this venue that forever was known for one race. And then IMS fans that were saying, okay, we're opening the doors to a new series. How's it going to look? Are these cars, is the track wide enough? Can they go too wide? Whatever else. And it was a home run. It was an unbelievable, I remember in the late 90s, once NASCAR, because when NASCAR came to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I'm not arrogant enough to sit here and say as an Indianapolis native, that's what it was that suddenly introduced NASCAR into the American sports landscape as the forefront leader. That would be arrogant and naive of me. It was a slow process, but certainly one could argue that by the second half of the 90s and into the early 2000s, NASCAR had eclipsed probably Major League Baseball, open wheel racing, and was right on the cusp of the NBA as the second most popular sport in the country. And suddenly, names that 20 years earlier would have been very regionalized and niche were household names. The Greg Biffles, rest his soul, but the Greg Biffles, the Mark Martins, the Elliott Sadlers, the Sterling Marlins of the world, who were very good drivers, but they were not Dale Earnhardt and they were not Richard Petty. Those drivers were becoming household names, and literally you couldn't go down any aisle in a grocery store without seeing three different products that had the face of three different NASCAR drivers on it. It was an amazing confluence of commercialization and marketing and promotion, and America was all in. And I remember going on, in those days when I was kind of in the infancy of my own career from a media standpoint, but I remember going to the Speedway on Friday for practices. The practice days on Friday. And you were there all day on Friday. And literally, it was 50 people deep in the chain link fences around the garage area with disposable cameras, some to wave at Tony Stewart, some to flip him off, some to wave at Jeff Gordon, some to flip him off. It was unbelievable. And you had the Ford Fan Fest at the Dome and the Dodge drivers on the circle, and be sure to get to your local oil change place because this driver's making an appearance. It was this compact schedule of ubiquitous stock car culture for 3 straight days and the week leading up to it and all of it. I mean, stuff going on constantly. And that is not to say that that's completely the event itself. It's not that the event has dropped off, just the overall menu of sport has changed. Because back then we were still in the era, for the most part, of there were a handful of sports because it was what the networks were making and providing for you. And NASCAR was suddenly placed into the epicenter of that because it was getting television contracts that were putting it front and center on a number of different things. Now, obviously, Eddie, as you know, things are everything's more a la carte now. If your interest level, if you're an Arizona Diamondbacks fan and you live in Boise, Idaho, you can now stay at home and watch the Arizona Diamondbacks 155 times a year by just simply tuning into the one channel you pay for, where that's what you get. And you are selecting what it is that you're watching, not the other way around. I think it's indicative a little bit of what we saw yesterday with the layoffs at ESPN. And the layoffs at ESPN, and everybody knows by now what I'm talking about. I mean, a number of different personalities, sadly and unfortunately, you never want to see it, obviously, losing their job. But ESPN is a different network than it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, ESPN was a network that provided nonstop, highlight-based information content. And it had, and it would employ people that became huge stars because they were the face and voice of different programs on ESPN. But it was the 4 letters that were still the brand of it all. Stuart Scott was a major star. Dan Patrick was a major star. Keith Olbermann was a major star. Chris Berman was a major star. But each time that they started to eclipse those 4 letters, their role would then be reassigned or brought. And I'm not saying by any malice, but it was clearly the overall brand that made them the star. ESPN was not hiring stars to say, look who we have. ESPN was hiring people and then making them stars because those people were able to say, look who I work for. And what we see now is that we are living in a world where the networks aren't able to provide to us, these are the people we're going to make stars. Now people are able to say, no, actually, this is who I want to hear from. This is who I want to see from. People now are able to a la carte pick what it is that they view and what they ingest. And so therefore, people are able to make stars out of themselves without needing the platform of ESPN to do so. And ESPN now, I think, largely is seen by the consumer as a place where you go for live sporting events, but not necessarily for the breakdown of said events or the highlights. Because these days, you don't have to wait until 11 o'clock. Man, did you see what happened in the Clippers game? I heard that, so-and-so had an unbelievable dunk. I can't wait to watch SportsCenter and see it. I mean, now you look right there and boom, you see it 2 seconds after it happened. So it's a different landscape. And I think from the NASCAR standpoint, it's a different landscape of what it was when it married with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because the platform of the stage and the platform is what was making the event the star. And now it's just different in the way that people ingest things. But it is still, and there are plenty of people in this town, understandably, I'm one of them, that if they had tricycle racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they would go and watch it. And I think that there's juice back in it because they're back on the oval after, even though I thought the then Xfinity, now O'Reilly Auto Parts series, those cars and the size of them were absolutely fantastic on the road course. But the road course is a little narrow for the width of the stock cars going around it, and therefore back on the oval now, that does create a little bit of juice. It's going to be, I guess, to some extent, emotional is maybe the wrong word, but I certainly hope and I would anticipate that there will be some recognition of Kyle Busch at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this weekend, because few drivers of any that I have seen were more acclimated immediately to that track and had a feel for it and a reverence for it like Kyle Busch, who, of course, was lost since the last time that we raced there. But we'll get into that coming up noon today. Fever in action again tonight, taking on Connecticut. That is an 8 o'clock tip, pregame at 7:30. Are you working that game, Eddie?
I am not working the game tonight.
Really?
Yes.
That's you. Are you going to the game?
I wish I was going to the game.
Have you been to, do you go to Fever games? I know you work
no,
most of them.
I do not, because I work them, yes.
But you've never just said, you know what, taking the night off and
No.
taking out the. Now, if you were going to the game, you would say that you're taking your fiance, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show again my linguistic nuance here of things that drive me crazy. I mentioned this last night on Beyond the Bricks.
Okay.
One of my linguistic pet peeves, and I know that I'm weird in this, it drives me nuts when people say somebody's a Hoosier native. Hoosier native Jeff Gordon. Hoosier native Tony Stewart. Hoosier native David Letterman. That's redundant. Jeff Gordon, by the way, you wouldn't say Hoosier native because he's not native to Indiana, but a Hoosier, can you look up the definition of the word Hoosier? I know that I think they've changed it a little bit. Now they maybe just say or inhabitant.
A native or inhabitant of Indiana.
Okay. So to say a Hoosier native, if a Hoosier is a native of Indiana, then you are like the only thing that would be a native to a native would be what, like a fetus, right? Like if you're a Hoosier, that implies that you are a native of Indiana. Now, I guess you could say native Hoosier or original Hoosier to imply that you are not the inhabitant, but you're distinguishing between the two, but it drives me nuts. But nonetheless, yesterday, Tyrese Halliburton, congratulations, right? To Tyrese Halliburton.
And Jay Jones, yes.
And Jay Jones on their official wedding yesterday. Now,
also, you can't say that Jeff Gordon is a Hoosier native. He was not born here.
Correct. See what I'm saying? Exactly. Now, you could say, because it says or inhabitant. So right now, though.
Well, that's in terms of a Hoosier.
So Jeff Gordon is not a Hoosier. He is not a Hoosier.
That
right
would
now,
be correct.
Huh?
Yeah.
Because he is not a native to here, nor is he an inhabitant of here. Right?
Yeah.
It drives me nuts. So when you say Hoosier native or even native Hoosier, I think it's redundant. But I digress. So Tyrese Halliburton, Jay Jones, congratulations to them. They went down to, I assume it's the city-county building because the photo here is right in front of City Market. So it looks like they're right in front of the city-county building. And what drives me nuts is every article that I've seen, okay, nationally speaking, says Tyrese Halliburton and fiance Jay Jones were married. Well, then isn't that his wife? And why do we say that why not Jay Jones marries fiance Tyrese Halliburton? Right?
Yes.
Fiance is not a gender-specific term, correct?
It is not.
So now that they are married, if it is a post-ceremonial photo or a post-official photo, she is no longer, nor is he, the fiance. Tyrese Halliburton married his wife, Jay Jones Halliburton. If she took the last name, I don't know if she did or not. Right?
Correct.
It drives me nuts. Am I neurotic that these are the things that keep me awake at night?
It's just you, Jake.
What is that supposed to mean?
You're becoming an old man.
I'm not well, there's no becoming about that.
You're becoming an old man and you're starting to yell at clouds more and more each day.
I don't yell at clouds.
You are yelling at clouds right now.
How is that yelling at clouds? That's simply, I think actually what it is academically astute. How's that?
That's
that sounds
AS.
arrogant, right?
That's not AS.
I don't remember what the AS stands for. You're saying that I declare about myself something. Yesterday, we did a fun exercise where people texted in at 239-1070 of little things that let us know that they listen to the show. And there were some awesome, awesome responses. But I don't know that anybody has texted at 239-1070 to let us know what because I honestly don't recall. You are saying that there is a phrase that I say about myself that is the acronym of AS. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. I'm sure we'll get some good ones, Jake. People may write in their own opinion on what that may mean.
Somebody's texting me right now to let me know what it stands for. No, they're asking about soccer in Indianapolis. Okay, I'll get to that later. Will Fleming, by the way, do you remember Will Fleming from his time in Indianapolis with the Indians, Eddie, by chance?
I don't remember his time with the Indians, but I certainly do know Will Fleming. He's one of the top broadcasters, I would say, in Major League Baseball.
Will Fleming is the voice of the Boston Red Sox. They are the hottest team in Major League Baseball. They've won, 14 in a row?
Yes.
The Boston Red Sox are surging in the AL East. Now, for what reason would anybody care in Indianapolis about the Boston Red Sox? Well, notably just because Will Fleming, who is their radio play-by-play voice, is a former Indianapolis Indian broadcaster, lived in, for a while here, a Hoosier. Not a native Hoosier, but a Hoosier.
Was he born in Indiana?
Born in the D.C. area, educated at Stanford.
Okay, so then, yeah, he is not a native.
Correct. But during the time that we could ask him because he went to Stanford, so this guy's smart.
Wait, is
right?
he coming on the show?
Yes.
When?
10 minutes.
Oh.
He's on his way to the ballpark. Red Sox have a doubleheader today, but it's the fact that they've won 14 straight. But we need to catch up with Will just to find out how much he misses Victory Field, Indianapolis, 30 years of Victory Field and the Indians. He was with the Indians and Howard Kellman for, I believe, I'm going to guess 5 seasons. Just a great dude. Great dude. Now lives in Rhode Island and drives into the ballpark every day. And so he said, you know what? I'll call you on my way to the park as the Red Sox get set for their 14th, soon-to-be 15th straight win. If they win the doubleheader. Now, Eddie, as a baseball historian,
sure.
If you think about the Boston Red Sox, and I know it's not necessarily applicable here in Indianapolis, but you think about the Boston Red Sox, one of the most historic franchises in all of sport, and they have a chance to set a franchise record for consecutive wins, and you make a very good baseball point about the fact that they have a better chance of doing this if it wasn't for the rain out yesterday that led to the doubleheader, correct? So how does that factor in now to the fact that you have this doubleheader and that creates this curveball, this wrinkle, if you will, in how a team handles that? Eddie was making that point yesterday, and I'm trying to give him his flowers here, but he's taking off his headsets and is paying no attention.
Blame Mark Dykton. He's in here yapping to me.
Dykton was just on the air talking about people coming up to him at Costco. Did he not get enough airtime?
Not enough.
He said not enough, no.
I mean,
what flowers were you trying to give me?
I can tell. You were mentioning that you think that it creates a curveball to the Red Sox of trying to continue this because now they got to play 2-1.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't see it that often anymore, Jake, where a team will sweep the doubleheader. Usually if team wins game 1, they will lose game 2. Unless for some reason they've got ace 1. They have 2 aces, in their pitching staff and they both pitch in the same day. That's the only time I think we see in baseball a team sweep a doubleheader. So hopefully the Red Sox can win the first game and threaten to top their 15-game win streak in franchise history.
So Will Fleming is the voice of the Boston Red Sox. We're going to catch up with them here in just a couple of minutes. Big show lined up for you today. Debbie Antonelli going to join us on the program. That is at 12:30. She has a very interesting perspective. There was a huge article done in, I believe, Charlotte about Caitlin Clark and the fact of Debbie Antonelli says this is a disruption to basketball like we've never seen before, but in a good way when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But I have questions for Debbie Antonelli because I am curious if having the marketing force of a Caitlin Clark doesn't teeter on what can be a disruption that then carries over into a negative way. And I don't mean that to debate with Debbie Antonelli, who I absolutely love, but I'm curious if she could understand the perspective of what I bring on it. We'll have that conversation coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. And again, Zane Smith going to join us. Interesting comments he's made. It's kind of been a back and forth in terms of he and Carson Hocevar about their rivalry, and maybe that's kind of a one-sided thing in that term. But Zane Smith, third year in the Brickyard 400 this year. He's going to join us coming up 12 o'clock, and we will also get into the Fever, and we have more clarity now on the LeBron situation, which I only mentioned not because we're a national show, but because it does have perhaps Indiana implication. We'll get into that as well. But when we come back, hottest team in baseball, and the guy on the mic for it is a guy that spent a lot of time in Indy. So Will Fleming going to join us on his way to Fenway. We'll do it next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, this is admittedly a catchy song, but Sweet Caroline, or is it Dirty Water? Is that the other one they play at Fenway? But we go with Hottogo to bring in Will Fleming. And if I know Will Fleming, I mean, I know he's got the Stanford education and he's an East Coast guy, but he's probably tapping his toe while he's driving to Fenway while listening to Hottogo. Isn't that right, Will?
YES, it is. It's been we've been tapping a lot of things these last couple of weeks. It's an easy time to be happy in New England.
Listen, here they are. The Red Sox have won 14 straight. They're 6.5 back in the AL East. And I recall, and it doesn't seem long ago to me, Will, I was listening to a game that you were broadcasting, and I believe, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you said something along the lines of, this is an offense that is not set to the standard of what you Red Sox fans should be able to expect or, see out of your franchise. And now here they are, 14 straight, hottest team in baseball, a chance to set for a historic franchise record. What has been the difference here?
Well, first of all, great to be with you. I hope all my friends in the Circle City are doing well. It's a lot of different things, Jake. And by the way, when I said that, it was true. I mean, it was a putrid offense, and just about every metric would prove that they were about the worst team in baseball offensively. So they've had this great pitching all season long, and that has been the steadying presence, and that's why they've been able to go on a run like this. You can't do it if you don't have good starting pitching. But to answer your question, what's been different is a lot of different things. And I think it's probably, I don't know if it's unique to baseball, but baseball is so different in that I don't know that there's a comp in football where if you go from averaging 3.5 yards per carry to 4.5 yards, you start winning every game. In baseball, if you start walking 2 more times a game and you start getting on base as a team 6 or 7 more times and you hit, 1 more home run a game, you start scoring multiple more runs every night. And that's kind of what has happened. They just walk more. They put the ball in play. It's much more contact, fewer strikeouts, and they've got a couple anchors in the middle of the order in Wilson Contreras and Wilyer Abreu, who've just gotten red hot at the perfect time. So you got the guys around them getting on base. And the other thing is the hardest to put your finger on. They're just a really tough, resilient group all of a sudden. And they're run by and led by a bunch of badasses. And Contreras is one of them. And they got this third baseman in the offseason from the Brewers named Caleb Durbin, who got booed on opening day at Fenway Park because he'd been awful in the first 10 games. And he was hitting $160 through 2 months. And now he's about their best player. And he slugs, he dives all over the place. He broke his finger and insisted to play the next day. And I think that's kind of a microcosm of what's going on, where you have players who are just dying to stay on the field every game, and that's kind of been the secret sauce.
We can relate to that, Will, because Eddie and I, this program moved from noon to 3 to 10 to 1 a couple of weeks ago. We've been booed for the first 10 shows, so we can relate to that, right? And now we're trying to put it together now, but that remains to be seen. By the way, Red Sox.
I don't believe that for 1 second. 1 second, no way.
Fewest runs allowed in Major League Baseball. The Red Sox tied with the Los Angeles Dodgers in that regard. That is certainly a formula. Will, how many years? And I was thinking somewhere, and I apologize for not knowing the exact number. The number of years that you were part of the Indianapolis Indians radio broadcast. How many seasons?
Kelman for 3 seasons. Let me dial back the clock here. 12, 13, and 14 were my years in Indy.
Okay.
So, 3 seasons next to the legend, Howard Kelman. And, I know you guys know Howard well and have listened to so many of his games. And it's amazing because at that time he was 40 years older than I was. And I viewed that as such a great blessing because I think the thing that Howard taught me more than anybody, along with Joe Castiglione, who's now in Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame, there are a lot of similarities with the two of them. Number one, like manic geniuses for the history of the game.
Right.
But then the other thing that they both have in common is an obsession over knowing every rule and every detail. And I think that's so important. You just, for credibility's sake, you got to know what's going on. You got to be able to inform your fans. And both those guys were so wonderful at that. And I know Howard's still going strong in Indy, and I was honored to work with him.
There is obviously you get to go to Fenway every day, and that alone is magical. I mean, the top echelon of professional sport, no question. But Indianapolis just had, and it would be naive of me, obviously, to say that it's Fenway, right? But Victory Field just celebrated its 30th birthday, which is kind of hard to believe, Will, because the park looks the same as it did the day that it opened. I mean, from a minor, I was going to ask your perspective on it because you then went to Pawtucket and you've been around baseball. Do we take for granted maybe in Indianapolis just the kind of a gem for a minor league park that we have here?
I hope you don't take it for granted because it's as good as any of them. And it's such a perfect fit for that city. And it's such a credit to the Schumacher family and that entire organization to continuing to invest in that ballpark and make it look new, even though, as you say, it's 3 decades on. I remember this vividly, Jake. It was my birthday, the first day I ever drove my car, which had everything that I owned in my life in the back of it. It was a Ford Escape, and I decided I was just going to pack up and drive to Indy, find an apartment, and live there. I'll never forget this. I rolled into town April 3rd, 2012, at about 5:45, and the sun was setting in Indy, maybe 6:45 on the western side of the Eastern time zone, and I just made a point to drive to the ballpark, and I parked my car in the parking lot, and a gate was open, and I just took a lap in the ballpark, and I thought, holy Christ, this is so different than anything I've been in before. And that was a feeling that really did not go away for all of my time there. All the nights sitting in that broadcast booth, looking out over Victory Field with the JW Marriott as the sky changed and all the fans were so committed to that team and so into it. I think it's about the crown jewel of minor league baseball. And I was really lucky to be there. And again, it's just a credit to everybody there. There's so many dedicated people. And I think the thing about that franchise that fits the city so well is that it's run like a family and a bunch of neighbors just come to the office together every day. And again, Max and Randy and Bruce and all the guys that run that team, they've always done that. They've always made people feel like they're part of a family. And so guess what happens? You're not as upset when you got to get there at 7:30 in the morning and pull a tarp or play a doubleheader in the second week of April. Everyone there is so invested in the success of that franchise and the ballpark, and it sure shows.
Will Fleming is my guest, by the way. He's on the Suave Men's 201 hotline. Will is, among other things, suave. And Will, with that, and before we get back to the Red Sox real quick, before I let you go, it would be very easy for someone who is holding probably the most coveted position in broadcasting in baseball, certainly one of the top 5, in certainly one of the top 3 venues. And it would be very easy to say, yeah, Indy was a fun little launch pad for me, but look where I am now, as opposed to, and it sounds like instead of that, you actually have an appreciation for still like a little part of the Indians being with you with your responsibilities day to day. Is that me over romanticizing it as an Indianapolis native?
No, not even a little bit. I loved Indy. And I think it's so funny. I live in Providence, Rhode Island now. You came to my house last year, I believe it was.
Yep.
And I feel similarly about the two places where you kind of don't want to talk too loudly about it because it's such a gem. And I think people who look at you from the outside, like I tell people all the time around the Red Sox, they're like, well, where do you live? You live in Wellesley or Newton? Or no, I'm in Rhode Island. They're like, what? Why would you do that? Well, there's a reason, and it's the same reason that I loved Indy, and that is that it is filled with people. These cities, I think, kind of self-select in a way, and the people who appreciate the great things about Indianapolis are a lot like the people who appreciate the great things of Providence. And what ends up happening is at dinner parties and birthday parties with little kids and everything, there's so much less conversation about what you do for work, although obviously people tend to ask me about my work. But you understand what I'm saying. It's not like I'm doing this private equity deal and this law firm is coming after me. And I felt that way in Indy too. There's just more humanity and you connect with people about who they are instead of what they do. And I really think that, yes, I carry Indianapolis with me. I mean, look, I met my wife there. I met some of my great friends there. I just and again, working with Howard, I learned so much. And the other thing I would say, Jake, is that you always look back sort of with the tincture of time, and you can then laugh at some of these instances. But we had an instance where one of our players, Felix P.A., went into the stands and almost fought a fan because they were throwing something at him. And I said that on the radio, and members of the Pittsburgh Pirates organization and then some others in our organization were furious with me. But you learn. I'd rather learn that lesson at that level before it's 900,000 people in Boston. And by the way, I still don't think I did anything wrong by telling the truth about what was happening on the field. But I'll just leave that as it is. I just think it's cool to be able to be in a beautiful place like that where it feels like the big leagues, but there's not quite as much pressure, where you can learn the rules, you can learn all the intricacies. Because Jake, I really think one of my favorite things about our game is that it's so nuanced. You see different stuff every day, and you have to have watched it and learned it and talked to the people who played it. And so even though I didn't always love the bus rides to Scranton and all the car rides to Toledo and Columbus, I was talking to our players and managers and learning the game from their perspective, through their eyes. And in Newport Beach 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with Chase Darno, who was the first player I ever met with the Indianapolis Indians. And so this sport just kind of binds you in a way over those bus rides, over those long seasons, over the rain delays and card games and all that stuff. It's something that I just adore about it.
I've always wondered this when you're calling a baseball game, and I'll listen to whether it be Will, yourself. Will Fleming is my guest, the voice of the Boston Red Sox. Whether it be yourself or others, you'll say 2-1, slider and he missed, or the two-seamer is in and that's it. Honestly, do you ever just make that up? Do you ever just say to yourself, he hasn't thrown a slider in a while? Nobody's gonna know the difference.
No, I don't make it up. That's one of the things you learn after just watching. I mean, I've watched millions of pitches, right? And so you just kind of know. First of all, you know what certain pitchers throw,
right?
And so you kind of have that in your mind. But I will tell you this: I not to hurt my arm, pat myself on the back. I am very good at that, identifying pitches. But if I get one wrong, because what I'll do is I'll say that, and then I will glance over to the monitor. The television feed is going in our broadcast booth as well. And if I was wrong, sometimes let's just say like a cutter looks like a slider or a two-seamer looks like a changeup. If I said the wrong thing, I will say actually that was a changeup. Because that's what it is, Jake. It's just recognizing the movement, right? The arc of the baseball. And so that part is sometimes you get crossed up, but generally I'm pretty good at that.
Will, what is an even count in baseball? Is it 2-2
great
or
question.
is it 2-1?
Oh, wow. You know what? This is the kind of thing Jake spends a lot of time thinking about. I don't really lose a lot of sleep over that. It is interesting. I would say probably you're right. 2-1 is more technically even, but obviously just in the parlance in a broadcast, I would say it evens up at 1-1 or 2-2. Even though, as you say, probably not exactly right.
Yeah, I think it's 2-1 is an even, right? Because each person has one margin for error, right? They have the same margin for error at 2-1, right?
What do you think? When we're trying to go for a franchise record in wins, do you think I should spend 3 innings on this topic today?
Yes.
On the air? Yeah.
And yes, you should. And here's the thing. Kids will love it, Will. We've done a lot of research around here. Kids love that kind of thing. So if you can do that, that's outstanding. Yeah. Okay, so 14 straight right now for the Red Sox. Dumb question because it's a doubleheader today. 15 is the record or 16? Do they have to sweep today or they would get it with the first?
All-time record, we do it tonight. 15 ties it, 16 breaks it.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Red Sox in action today. Of course, it's a doubleheader because they were rained out. 6.5 back in the AL East and 6 in front of the surging Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll see what happens in the AL East. Surging in the wrong direction, Will.
Hey, we get them this weekend, man. Just get on an airplane. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it is wild that I get to drive into Fenway Park every day. I mean, every day I pinch myself that I'm doing it. But when I tell you right now that it is the best place on planet Earth, I'm telling you, I'm not being hyperbolic. Our fans right now are losing their minds. And I know you got to experience it last summer. It is a different – it feels like it's the playoffs, And when we had this kid, Caleb Durbin, who I talked to you about, he had a home run in the 8th inning the other day to put us ahead for the 3rd time after falling behind. And, I mean, the whole place shook. It was absolutely insane what was going on at Fenway Park. And so that's the cool thing about today. We just hope it's like this magic elixir is going through our town and our ballpark. And so you just want to keep it going. And we got 2 chances to do that today.
There are a handful of sports venues that even if you are not a fan of the franchise, you go to the event and you walk away and you go, I get it. I get it. And then you got to buy like a hat or something because you're like, yeah, it was pretty cool. It is very cool that you get to experience it, Will. Drive safely on your way into the ballpark, and thanks for squeezing us in. But obviously, goes without saying, we've known each other a long time. Absolutely thrilled and excited on a regular basis to be able to say that I know the voice of the Red Sox. It is very cool. And go easy on the Blue Jays this weekend.
We will not do that, but I'm thrilled to know you too, Jake. You've been a great friend to me for a lot of years, and I'm glad you're thriving too. And thanks so much for having me on. Always a treat.
Appreciate it. Will Fleming, the former voice or one of them, alongside Howard Kellman of the Indianapolis Indians and now of the surging Boston Red Sox. And he can identify a cutter, a slider, fastball, curveball.
Sinker?
Sinker. Sinker's easy. Cutter, I have no idea.
Really?
Slider, I have no idea. Slider's White
Sweeper?
Castle, right? Don't you get a slider at White Castle, right?
Sweeper? There's another one. Things they put on the track? I don't think they'll need them this weekend, though.
Well, they'll need some sweepers. Sweepers clean up the rubber on the track.
Oh, that's right.
It's the jet dryers we hope they don't need, right?
That's right.
Fever in action tonight. We're going to get into that discussion. We're going to do it next. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripe. Surfside is the very best. This time, I'm telling you, sitting by the pool, watching softball, baseball, partaking in it outdoors, any of it, Surfside, the perfect companion. Surfside is iced tea with a splash of vodka, lemonade with a splash of vodka, and with no carbonation, it is so incredibly smooth and refreshing. Look for Surfside in its variety of flavors. Blueberry lemonade's been a big one. The standard lemonade is awesome, whatever it might be. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages, but please be 21 and please consume Surfside responsibly.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I think it's interesting that Will Fleming is probably the smartest person I've ever met was my friend Turhan Donner, who was beyond brilliant. Turhan went to Vanderbilt, quadruple majored, got a full academic ride to the Indiana University School of Medicine, or full, whatever you call that. And then was an oncologist in Texas. Smartest person I've ever met. Never picked up a pen, just remembered everything. Will's right there in that same stratosphere. Stanford's acceptance rate is like 3%. I'm going to guess. 3.4%. That's my guess on the acceptance rate at Stanford. And most of those applicants are coming from like extremely highly coveted high schools or boarding schools or prep schools, etc.
3.6%.
3.6. It's pretty impressive, right? And again, that 3.6, I mean, there are very few, everybody that is applying there is probably in the top 1% of their graduating class of high school, and yet the 3.6 get in. So Will, a Stanford guy, and like I said, grew up in D.C., his brother Dave Fleming, the voice of the San Francisco Giants for years. And yet, when you asked him the question about which is an even count, sounded, Eddie, like he was on board with the KU flame out, right?
The KU flame out.
Because I've said, remember when I brought it up, I'm like, I know you thought I was yelling at clouds, but I'm like, I think an even count would be 2-1.
I didn't say you were yelling at clouds there. You asked me what an even count was, and I told you at the time. I said it was 2-1, 1-0, 3-2.
Okay, so you were in agreement with me.
Yeah.
So 2-2 is not an even count, because you hear that a lot, right?
Correct.
The counts even
numerically, it is an even count.
Correct. I get what you're saying. But even advantage is 2-1. Fever in action tonight. What they need to do, what we expect to see heading into the All-Star break. We'll get into it next. It is a Wednesday indeed. It is hump day. We are midway through the week. Man, a week is just flying by. Brickyard 400 weekend. So I will be on the call. We merge the broadcast teams, PRN and the IndyCar Radio Network. So I will be in turn 3. I did not do the Brickyard a year ago because IndyCar was in Laguna. So this will be the first time in a couple of years.
Laguna Seca?
What's that?
Laguna Seca?
Correct.
Okay.
Out in Monterey. So that was a year ago, and Bubba Wallace winning the Brickyard, I believe that was last year, right? So I was not on that call, but back for it in turn number 3 for the entire weekend. Zane Smith, who will be in the race, will join us just about an hour from now. Debbie Antonelli joining us midway through the 12 o'clock hour to talk about the fever. And Debbie there was a really interesting article that was done, I believe it was the Charlotte Observer, about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. And as Debbie Antonelli said, you know, this almost disruption that took place in a good way, right, in terms of this, and we have discussed this. I think that when you look at the fever, and we can get into what this game means for them heading into the All-Star break with Connecticut tonight at 8 o'clock, pregame 7:30 on the radio station here, and you can certainly analyze, as we will, what this means for the Fever as a team and what the All-Star break means for the franchise to have representation in a variety of ways. But it does feel like, as we have discussed, the one thing about this phenomenon of Caitlin Clark and the W in general, I believe when James Boyd was with me, the analogy that I used was it's like Austin, Texas, or Nashville, Tennessee. Austin, notably. If you've been to Austin, Texas in the last 10 years, Austin, Texas 30 years ago was Wichita. I mean, it wasn't. It's a state capital. I get it. But it was Oklahoma City. I mean, it was a middle market city. And it's now Austin has absolutely exploded. And the population has probably tripled in the last 2 decades, which is wonderful. And it's a great city, and there's a ton to do, and it's exciting, and there's live music, and there's barbecue and all of it, right? All of those things. But the infrastructure of Austin is still trying to catch up. And if you drive around Austin, Texas, you can see just huge concrete barriers that are, going to be overpasses at some point, and you can tell that they're, bypass highways and all of it because they're trying feverishly to catch up with this groundswell of interest that converged on Austin, Texas, seemingly overnight. And to a great extent, the WNBA, since the time that Caitlin Clark arrived from Iowa, has undergone exactly that. And it's fabulous and it's wonderful to have the television numbers and the interest and the conversation point, and for the teams to be able now to have a collective bargaining agreement and more money to come in and television revenue and flying commercial or, charter instead of commercial and all of those things. But it also means that things are far more scrutinized. The standard is different. The expectation is different in the way that you are going about and presenting your product and the way that your fans are taking in your product. And I think that is on display when it comes to All-Star Weekend. The Indiana Fever are fortunate to be in a situation where they have representation around the WNBA All-Star Weekend, with the All-Star break starting tomorrow and running through Sunday. But, Eddie, the reality is the WNBA, in the way that it has gone about selecting players for their different all-star festivities, the openness with which they are selecting players or not selecting players. In the past, they could dictate those terms, or they could just say, here's how it's going to be, and here's here's how we have presented it. And probably if they weren't being completely transparent, it didn't matter because there wasn't an overwhelming amount of scrutiny and or interest level and or dissection as to how it all came together. But like Austin, Texas, that infrastructure now is much more necessary because there is a lot more direct eyeball on exactly that. And the WNBA, again, as you had pointed out to me earlier today, is in a situation, I'm not saying it's overly egregious, but it seems as though at times they are not going over with a fine-tooth comb all of the nuances that they now need to as opposed to 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the level of interest in the WNBA has certainly skyrocketed because of Caitlin Clark, and Sophie Cunningham is also, a league and a fan favorite. And Aaliyah Boston is the league leader in three-point percentage. When you're looking at the festivities in Chicago this weekend, those three players are three of the most popular and statistically best three-point shooters. Caitlin Clark not in that specific category, but Aaliyah Boston number 1, Kelsey Mitchell's number 2, Sophie Cunningham is number 4 in the league in three-point shooting. None of them are participating. Now, Aaliyah Boston did come out and say that she did not plan to participate in the three-point shootout. And James Boyd was talking about it on the morning show that the WNBA reportedly asks its all-stars before they open it up to non-all-stars on if they want to participate in any of the league activities leading up to the all-star game. There was a post on social media. Sabrina Ionescu, who is an all-star, it was reported that she declined, and she commented and said lies. Now, with how things have been this season in the WNBA and historically with, the WNBA itself, we don't know exactly which is the truth here. And in the other aspect to it, Jake, is that you don't really know if someone took, her commenting on a different post and just photoshopped it to that reported post,
Right.
So if they did.
But the perception is there.
Agreed. Yes.
That the perception would be that, in fact, she was disputing the WNBA's claim, right? No, I wouldn't ask. I didn't decline.
Right.
I wasn't. That was not something that was brought to my attention. And again, these are little things that the WNBA 5 years ago, perhaps, I don't even know that we're having that discussion or that it's noted. And social media has changed things a little bit too, right? And you are correct in this day and age where you don't even know, for example, the situation with the Miami Heat.
Oh, yeah,
the Miami Heat put together a video of like a welcome back LeBron in preparation for LeBron and making his announcement on where he's going to go, and someone within the Heat organization posted that erroneously. Now, for what it's worth, and I've mentioned this before, without saying the names of anyone, but right now I can promise you, and I would hope this is the case from a television standpoint, but certainly from a newspaper standpoint, when I worked in local news television, Channel 6, Dave First, who I worked with, for a long time, it was basically Dave and I we were kind of almost a two-person department. We had other people that came in and out, but we were all in. I give credit to Dave on this. I was the supporting staff. This is a Dave thing, but there were a number of sport dignitaries in Indianapolis or the state of Indiana that were perfectly alive, healthy, and well, but we already had a reflective obit news story ready to go in case something happened, so that you're not then playing catch up and literally the day that you get the announcement that John Doe has passed, boom. As for John Doe's career, here you go. And here's a piece ready to go. And I would imagine the Indianapolis Star has in their drafts obit pieces already written on a number of different dignitaries when it comes to sport or just in general in the state of Indiana. So you have to have those things ready to go. And I'm assuming what happened here is the Miami Heat had a video montage ready to go for this. But once it gets leaked that someone accidentally hits post and it gets out there, your first assumption now in 2026, Eddie, at least mine is to immediately go back and cross-check it of, now, is this real, or did some fan in Pocatello put this together using Chat GPT and then pawn it off as being from the Miami Heat in order to make it look like they have egg on their face?
Right. I think I was listening to the morning show when they were talking about this, and it was one of those situations where it was, they were putting it together just in case type deal.
Correct.
Had it ready, and it
That's
just got
what we
accidentally
found
let
out,
go.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it was a quote-unquote just in case, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the point being...
Yeah, like I'm sure, Philly's got one ready to go if he chooses to go to the 76ers. Golden State, the same thing.
So, but the point being, there is a natural tendency to cross-check now everything like 3 times to make sure it is legitimate and real, even like photos of celebrities or whatever it may be. In this case, when it comes to the WNBA, the unfortunate thing where the WNBA, the situation that has been created, is that you automatically want to cross-check it because it would unfortunately not be out of character for them from a PR standpoint to go in the wrong direction, right? If that makes sense. Because that has been the precedent here for the last year or two because they are Austin, Texas. This has grown all of this attention and scrutiny faster than I think they can keep up. I'm not even saying it to damn them. I kind of understand it, but things that kind of passed through in the night before are now being watched by all the neighbors with flashlights. That's where they are now. That is a byproduct of the commercialization, and it is, to an extent, at times surreal to realize that that's all largely centered right here in Central Indiana. Because Caitlin Clark is the most popular and certainly the most transcendent player. Aaliyah Boston is as good and as well-rounded a player as there is in the league and a former number 1 pick. And then Sophie Cunningham is obviously kind of a pop cultural phenomenon at this point because of the point and the UFC and all of the aspects of and she is a dynamic personality. I mean, a fun personality in a good way. But all of those things create different channels in the water that are rapidly flowing this river faster than seemingly the WNBA can anticipate. But with All-Star Weekend now upon us, for the Fever, Eddie, I think tonight is a big game because they have started to kind of turn the corner here. And I think the break may be coming at the right. You could look at it 2 ways. You could say, if they're putting it together here and they're starting to kind of click and figure out who they want to be, is the break a bad timing because they want to keep that going, or do they need it just because they figured things out, but they still kind of need to just collectively catch their breath, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Caitlin Clark's minutes restriction is lifted tonight ahead of the All-Star game and how much, she participates in the All-Star game with, the nature of her back injury and how she's been banged up pretty much all season long. And if she does have that minutes restriction lifted tonight, then how does she feel coming off of it in the incoming days? And it would be nice to see them just be able to go out, play a full 40-minute game, take care of business against one of the worst teams in the WNBA. And hopefully it's not a repeat of what happened last Friday against the Seattle Storm, where at that time, the Storm, and I think they still are, the worst team in the WNBA, and you need a ferocious comeback, and it's, led by Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark with that historic performance Friday night. Take care of business against the team that you are 10.5-point favorites against tonight versus Connecticut, and I think you can go into the break feeling really good about where the Fever are going and heading with the way that they have been playing in the last 10 games.
But, by the way, does it storm in Seattle? Yes. Seattle, to me, I don't know that it storms, Eddie.
It does.
Here's the thing. So in Seattle,
you've been to Seattle before, right?
Several times. One of my favorite cities.
When
Seattle is probably,
last time you were there?
Christmas Eve. It's been probably 10 years ago. Christmas time.
It stormed when we were there 2 years ago.
How big a storm?
I don't know.
I mean, like lightning,
Yeah.
wind, because Seattle is most known for this. You have it is a city and it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. But the eastern edge of Seattle is the Cascade Mountains. The western edge is the Pacific Ocean, and then I think it's southern edge is Lake Washington. So you get the coastal breeze that gets the moisture off of the ocean. It then continues to move east. It hits the Cascade Mountains. It can't get over that, and so the clouds just sit there and form, and you have this drizzly. I think it's most known. Seattle's most known for its drizzly haze, which is why coffee's so big, because people need energy because they're not seeing the sun, except for in the spring and summer when it's the most beautiful place on earth. But I don't think of it as. Is the storm named because they have storms? Is that why it's called that, or is it supposed to recognize something else? Was there a movie that took place there?
I don't know.
Do we know? Can you look up the origin of Seattle storm? I mean, it's catchy. Don't get me wrong, right? But I would think storm would be more applicable for like Tulsa.
Chosen because of Seattle's reputation as a rainy city, as well as the aggressive nature implicit in the name.
So the team is aggressive, but the rain is not, right?
They had an exhaustive search, and apparently the storm was
Ended up on storm.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very. What that sounds like. I guess the search was exhaustive, and then they got exhausted, and Randy in finance just goes, "What about storm?"
It was
Okay,
a
fine.
fan contest, actually.
Huh?
In 2001, they held a fan contest
Okay.
to choose the nickname of the WAB's new Seattle franchise. Out of over 1,200 entries from the Washington state, Storm was the clear favorite.
I guess you have to go with Storm because as it says they're more aggressive, but I would think Seattle Mist. The Seattle Mist is more applicable. Maybe there was some copyright with the Sierra Mist folk, but I would think Seattle Mist was more applicable, right?
Yeah.
Or what about Seattle Haze? There we go. They should have called me. No exhaustion, Seattle Haze. Why Haze, you ask? Well, because Jimi Hendrix is from Seattle. Purple Haze, one of his most famous songs. And then there's a haze over Seattle from the rain that comes. And then when you go to play against the team, you just get in this haze because they're so good. The Seattle Haze is what they should have been. And their colors are purple. They're the Purple Haze.
Trying to see what else was on this poll.
I mean, not a lot, obviously, if they settled on Storm after that exhaustive search. Everybody was exhausted. Literally, it's like one of those movies with a jury where everybody's like, I don't know, just come with a decision here. I want to get out of here. We get lunch? That's how it feels. Speaking of exhaustive and speaking of the WNBA, something happened to me last night. And when it happened, I made a note to myself. I don't do that often, but I made a note to myself. And my note simply says, ask Eddie. Okay? And I've noticed this of late where I start to doubt myself, which is not something that has been part of my normal behavior, but I've started to doubt myself. And then just when I start to doubt myself, I ask Eddie, and it turns out that I wasn't as neurotic as I thought. And it turns out that, in fact, I was like, you know what? I was right about this. It's not just me. Now, the last time this happened was with my car stereo. Remember, Eddie, I couldn't figure out how to get the car dealio working to get
Sure.
And the 19, and you were like, no. It's easy peasy. Like I do it all the time with rental cars. Every time I get a rental car, I'm a whiz. I can figure it out in 30 seconds. And I sat here and watched. I gave you the keys to the car, and I said, go out and just fiddle with it. And I watched, and I saw you were in my car for 42 and a half minutes, and you started banging the dashboard at the 28-minute mark, and then you came back in here, and you're like, you know what? You're right. Correct?
I didn't do all that, but I did say that I couldn't figure it out, yes.
It wasn't just me, right?
Correct.
It was, in fact, more confusing than it should have been, right? I have another thing along those lines as it comes to talking about the WNBA, okay? And I made a note to myself right here on my sheet, ask Eddie, which I'll do in just a couple of minutes. Hey there, Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. Right now, lunch buffet is going, and guess what? Chicago's Pizza's been there making everything fresh for you since the time they opened this morning, and that includes their hand-rolled breadsticks, that includes the deep dish pizza, that includes the traditional pizza, the salad bar with all the fixings right there fresh on ice, and a soft drink. You get all that. Right now, you're driving. You're saying, you know what? I'm hungry. I'm gonna hit some quick place. No. Now, you could still do Chicago's, obviously, quickly because it's all right there fresh in front of you, but you're not going to regret it after the fact. You're probably going to want more, which means the family meal deal, 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas for just $25 with the fresh order of breadsticks is going to make the entire family happy tonight. But with Chicago's Pizza, what you get is an establishment that is committed to the community. They give back with a number of different fundraisers. They are family-oriented. Oftentimes, you find that each location is owned by someone who started working there and worked their way through and said, I'd like to become a franchisee. That's what you get from Chicago's Pizza: commitment and Hoosier through and through. Chicago's Pizza, 19 central Indiana locations and 26 of them across the state of Indiana. Find a location near you at chicagospizza.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I noticed you're going with all female performers today, which is cool, right? Is there a theme here, Eddie?
No.
Okay. By the way, do you happen to have, Eddie, the breaking news sounder by chance? Breaking news, unless you listened to this program and caught it when I told you it was going to happen last week, for what that's worth. In IndyCar, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing is selling one of their charters. In other words, you are, upcoming here, allowed to have an engine program with an engine manufacturer, and you can sell that to a different team. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, which has been a 3-car effort over the course of this year with Louis Foster, Graham Rahal, and Mick Schumacher, is selling one of those charters, one of those licenses, if you will, to put it in those terms, to Dreyer and Reinbold Racing for the upcoming season. Not this season, but for the upcoming season. That would presumably mean that Mick Schumacher, who is coming off probably his best performance of the year in Nashville, will be on the outside looking in or trying to find a new team, which I would think will be attainable for him to do. Certainly when it comes to Dreyer and Reinbold.
How would you assess his season, Jake, as a rookie this year?
Boy, Mick Schumacher. Inconsistent, but oddly enough, starting to show progress on ovals. Problem is, obviously, there's only, a couple of ovals within the series, but the big one is on the oval at the Indianapolis 500. But I would give him it sounds unfair to say a D, because that sounds like there's close to failure. I don't know if I'd say that, but he has not torn up equipment. I will say that. As a rookie driver, a lot of times the less you hear about the driver, the better they're doing. But I would say it's unfair because of his name and his father being a legend within the sport, and the fact that he has an F1 background. You automatically thought it would mean acclamation to the road and streets, and that has been a slower progress. So I would say slightly below where you would have hoped, but actually starting to show signs where you're like, okay, there might be something here to work with moving forward. Whether or not that means another team picks that up for next year, it's possible Louis Foster's the one that becomes the odd man out, but that would stun me because he's under contract.
So it's like Jarris Walker.
Yeah. I mean, each time you start to think like, okay, maybe there's something there, then you revert back to, oh, I forgot about him, and then he's back again, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But now who becomes the driver for Dreyer and Reinbold? I would think Connor Daly will be, at this point, the one that is the forefront leader, but there are others as well. In terms of whether they go with a younger guy from Indy next, we shall see. But that is now official that Dreyer and Reinbold will be back in the series full-time. Dennis Reinbold, who is obviously or was the patriarch of that team, and that he had a great passion for racing. And unfortunately, Dennis was lost recently after a bout with cancer, but his vision, and I think he left it in place for the team to let them carry that on. And that is truly a family-oriented team. So excited to see them back in the series. Eddie, last night I was preparing for the show today.
What?
I know. Do you have the breaking news sounder by chance? Last night I was preparing for the show. And
For today.
For today, yes.
Not yesterday's.
I was actually, I was doing that. But I was scrolling through social media, which we talk a lot about on this program.
Social media?
Yes. And I have had this feeling for a while. And I'm almost prepared to make it now a declaration. I love it. It has been a big part of, honestly, helping and facilitating in the things from a media standpoint that I've had the pleasure and the privilege to be able to do for a long time. And what I'm talking about is X, formerly known as Twitter. And I don't know what most people would say was the quote-unquote heyday of Twitter. During live sporting events, there were no places that were more fun to be. And I know that you're not in a place. You're sitting there looking at a device, reading live interactions. But I would say 2018, somewhere in there, 2016, 2018, probably 2018 would be my guess, was the absolute peak of when there was a big event taking place, whether it be a sporting event, whether it be the Oscars, whether it be, whatever it might be, from a fun standpoint. And certainly it has major relevance and implication from a news standpoint and from an accountability standpoint until the AI stuff started taking over. Because it used to be that if you saw
Allen Iverson taking over?
Video, that's right. We're not talking about practice. We're talking about the game.
Not a game.
Because there was a time where when you saw something being exposed journalistically or in terms of an investigation or just a video in general of wrongdoing, that could go onto social media, and then accountability had to be held as a standard because you're like, look, I'm looking right at what was taking place. And this is indisputable that this person was in the wrong. Or at times, on the other side of it, somebody does something great, somebody has a great accomplishment, a great feat, and it goes on social media, and now they're getting their right due and their right praise. That also took place. Unfortunately, now, we are in a world where your first instinct, as we just talked about when we're talking about the WNBA, your first instinct when you see things now is to say, is that real? I don't know if that's real. And even if you have and hope for accountability on certain things, you have a percentage of people that are like, I don't know that that needs to be held accountable because there's no verification that that's real and not a made-up artificial intelligence video. But on top of that, now that Twitter is X, I'm not saying it's dead. I am actually. It's not, because people still use it. I still use it. But the interactions now are a fraction of what they once were. Because when you get people engaged in fun conversation and interaction, it doesn't take long before bot accounts, computer-generated accounts, just take it over and try to turn it into this cesspool of negativity, and everybody just retreats out and goes, yeah, okay, whatever, I'm leaving the conversation. That happens more and more and more and more. But in addition to that, it is so less user-friendly, which leads to this question. Last night, I was scrolling through my timeline, so I can't say it's dead because I was using it. But as I'm scrolling through it, I saw an article that I found to be of interest. And I'll be honest, I don't even remember now, and this is a sad commentary on the way that we live, the world that we live in now, where things happen so fast and you're so inundated with so many different thoughts and opinions and news stories and commentaries that sometimes it gets difficult to remember even where you were. Like we all have, myself included, this ADD that is not genetically within us, but it is now conditional upon us based on the world that we're living in. And so you have to occasionally do something to put a thumbtack on it and say, I want to get back to that. Literally, I mean, 12 hours ago, when there was an article that was posted, and I thought, I want to read that, but I don't have time right now. I'm doing something else, but I definitely want to go back and read that. That's something that I think might be of interest, or I can reference it when we're talking about a subject. And I don't even remember what the subject was. That's embarrassing. But I hit the button to like it. Because when you like something on the X Post Twitter, you can the next day go back and pull it back up and say, okay, I know yesterday that I liked this article. Let me go into my likes, and there it is. It basically is a storage folder. Eddie, I just went today, and I'm like, this must have just happened in the last 12 hours. That feature's gone. You can't even do that anymore. Like, every single day, the features of what are presented to you are totally different, and I'm like, what are we doing here?
I think you should look into the desktop version, because on my phone, I cannot see my likes, but on the desktop, on my computer,
okay,
I can see the tweets that I've liked.
When I log into my desktop for the X Post Twitter, it doesn't go past like 2021. Like, it thinks it's 2000. Like, my most recent post is one from like 2021. I kid you not. I know you think I'm crazy. But do you notice that, though, on the mobile version of what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
So I don't know what it was that – all I know is this. There are times where I think to myself, I need to ask Eddie, and Eddie's going to tell me that that the world's moving too fast, and then I feel better about myself because more often than not, you, and I appreciate it, go, you know what, you're right.
Same with you can't do polls on Twitter anymore from your phone.
Now, can you, or is that my settings, or is that everybody?
I know I can on the computer, on the desktop version. Let me see if it on my cellular device, Jake, if I can do that. Yeah, I can still do polls on my phone.
Isn't that crazy? Because I can't. Maybe they figured out that I was doing them too much. You think that's possible?
There's always a chance. They're like, yes, take this away. Help his following.
Hey, Jakes, likes are now in the history tab under your icon. Let's see. What is my icon? Is that my photo? Do you see a history tab? I realize this is scintillating radio.
Yeah, if you click on your picture in the top left corner, it opens up the side there. It goes profile, premium, and then history.
No, mine just says edit.
No, are you on your timeline?
Okay, now I am. Yep.
This is making for
I got you now.
radio.
Okay, I got you now. History. There we go. But again, I don't. Oh, those now. There's bookmarks. Okay, there we go. Yes, thank you. Outstanding. I know what I was going to mention. Did you hear about this guy last night for the Oakland Athletics?
Was that last night or was that 2 nights ago?
I believe. Well, it was 2 nights ago because I saw it last night.
Yeah, poor fella.
This fella, okay? This fella's at the plate for the Athletics. Now, he doesn't even have a city that we can say he plays for, right? He's playing in Sacramento on his way to Vegas, even though it used to be Oakland. And before that, Philly. Okay? So he's playing for the Athletics. And I don't think he was he hit by pitch or was he hit by a foul ball? I think it was a foul ball, right?
He fouled it off.
He fouled it. Okay. So he fouls it. Now, Eddie, I'm going to let you, since you know of the injury, and don't say the injury. I can just say this see, I almost said it. I can just say this technically, right? Medically?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what's amazing. This gentleman hits a foul ball. It comes back and instantaneously hits him. Like literally, it like bounces off the ground and comes right back and hits him, right?
Direct contact.
But I thought, but he made contact with the ball. He was not hit by the pitch, right?
Correct. He fouled it off. Direct contact, yes.
So it didn't bounce back up. It fouled off his
Yes.
bat and ricocheted lower, right?
Yes.
He goes down for the count. His voice changes. He starts sweating a little bit, and then he gets like a momentary stomach ache. Guys all know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually gets a hit,
He does.
runs it out, and is safe at first, correct?
Yes.
Now, I don't know, did they do a pinch runner for him, or did he stay in the game?
Let me check.
Because
So he finished that at bat, finished the inning, and then he was
Finished the inning.
replaced.
finished the inning.
Finished the half inning, I should say,
Okay.
and was replaced going into the bottom of the fifth.
Okay. They were playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, correct?
Yes.
He was taken to St. Joseph Hospital in Phoenix. This according to Jody Jackson, who does the Diamondbacks broadcasts. She posted last night from the Athletics. Kuroda Grauer was injured last night after fouling off a pitch in the 5th inning. He underwent emergency surgery to repair a ruptured testicle last night at St. Joseph Hospital in Phoenix and is resting comfortably. Now, I don't dispute this woman's journalistic integrity, but I do question the resting comfortably portion of that, right?
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm sure he's in a lot less pain than before.
Maybe so. Eddie, I read that last night, and I didn't sleep comfortably, let alone resting comfortably. I don't know if there are like Iron Man awards in Major League Baseball, but if there are.
There are for people that play all 162.
Well, let me tell you something, buddy. 162, what is it, 90 feet to first base?
Yes.
How about guys that just run out all 90? It's impressive. Zane Smith, by the way, Brickyard 400, his 3rd installment of it. He hopes to run on Sunday. He's going to join us just over 15. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website. Game Day Men's Health, guys, whatever it might be, right now you've got that uncomfortable feeling throughout the course of the day where you just need a nap. And you're like, I don't know why my energy level just dips. That could be a testosterone thing. Testosterone replacement therapy might help you out with that. Or it could be that you just have that stubborn belly fat you can't get rid of, and you'd like to start working out to do it, but man, you're sore, the aches and pains, the joints. Peptide therapy is great for that. Weight loss injections also. Whatever it may be in terms of the things to get you back in the game, Game Day Men's Health in Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood, there for you, and their Northside Indy location on North Shadeland. Game Day Men's Health and GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website. It is designed to get you in and out quickly. Make it a relaxed atmosphere where you can look over all of the things they have to offer talk through what is a best game plan for you. Not a one-size-fits-all, a game plan designed for your ideas and goals. That's what you get from Game Day Men's Health. Again, Avon, Carmel, Fishers, Greenwood, North Shadeland, in Indy. Find out all of the therapies, and I'm telling you, as somebody who has been doing the peptide therapies, I love it. I love the results, and I know you will as well. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. How about, by the way, from Surfside, the new Super Light? That's right, the sports drink, I should say, with 4 different flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and blue chill from Super Light from Surfside. And like Surfside, no carbonation, so smooth to enjoy. Whatever you are doing with this outdoor weather, then Super Light is going to be perfect for you. Fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and blue chill. Again, rec league, golf course, whatever it might be, just 90 calories, 0 sugar, and 0 bubbles. Super Light here to fuel the moment for you. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and consume responsibly.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, I yesterday casually mentioned this woman's name, and I certainly understand. You know, I remember Dave Calabro, there was a promo when he was at Channel 13 where he said, "Yeah, I live on the north side. I have friends on, or I grew up on the west side. I live on the north side. My wife's from the east side, and I have friends on the south side," or something along those lines. And I think that's an apt way of saying how we all feel about this city. And I certainly understand and respect that, as somebody who grew up on the north side, that I I probably show favoritism in terms of my discussion or references towards the north side of Indianapolis because that's the area where I grew up. John talks about Greene County and, the Odin Meat Locker and things like that because that's where he grew up. Eddie, we talk about Decatur Central baseball, etc. Yesterday, I made reference, I think it was yesterday, to the Summer Wonders, which was the tennis program that briefly, for like a 3-day period, I had a fleeting interest in joining when I was a kid because all of my friends were part of the tennis program in Washington Township and North Central. And certainly when I was in high school, the circle, the calendar signature event of the fall of each school year when I was a kid was the Carmel North Central tennis match. It was as big as the football game or anything else. It was massive. Carmel and North Central in tennis. And those two would volley back and forth, pardon the pun, between state championships. Park Tudor would occasionally have a good team. Evansville Memorial would occasionally have a good team, but those were the two crown jewels of tennis from the late 70s through probably, and certainly in Carmel's case, probably still is. But a huge part of that and a huge part of the culture in the north side of Indianapolis, Indiana, was the tennis world and the Washington Township tennis program, the Indianapolis Racket Club, all of those things because of the vision of a woman by the name of Barbara Wynn. And I made reference yesterday to Barbara Wynn when I mentioned the tennis program. I had no idea that Barbara Wynn just passed away. And that news coming out today, I'm not certain, and I apologize because I've been on the air, the exact date in which she passed away. 4 days ago, Barbara Wynn passed away. I did not know that when I referenced it. But you want to talk about somebody that was, and I didn't know Barbara Wynn. I certainly know my cousin was very good friends with her children. I know you could not grow up on the north side of Indianapolis and not know of the impact of Barbara Wynn. And from my standpoint, that impact, and I'm sure it's different for all people, but in terms of this city and the sport of tennis and everything from the clay courts to the RCA tennis championships, but more so from the participatory standpoint of young people. When I talked about Peru, Indiana, and seeing that circus and how that was such an important part of, I could see the result of the dedication, the commitment to those kids in Peru and having a purpose and something that kept them focused as young people. And I could see it when I went to the circus last week. The same absolutely was true of the tennis aspect in Washington Township and the north side of Indianapolis, up in through Carmel and through so many different schools because of Barbara Wynn's tireless involvement and championing not just the sport of tennis, but the young people that could benefit from the personal discipline of learning the craft. And from so many aspects, well beyond what I can talk about right now, she left footprint and impact on the people and the culture of this great city. And there are a ton of people that have left their mark in making Indianapolis the city that it is or having a vision of bettering this city. And Barbara Wynn did it as well as anybody. So a life well lived and one where this city benefited from her contribution. Brickyard 400 is this weekend, and Zane Smith will be in his third Brickyard. He's made some headlines lately in the stock car side of things, and a guy that has a vast racing background, including in Indiana before he got into Cup. We'll talk to him next. It is a Wednesday, and it is midweek. It is Brickyard week in Indianapolis. For that matter, it's Brickyard week everywhere in NASCAR country, right? But certainly
in the Eastern time zone.
And in the Eastern time. Well, it's noon it's the lunch hour in the Eastern time zone and everywhere across the Eastern time zone, right? That means it is, I'm trying to think here, 9 a.m. on the West Coast, which is the home. I'm not saying he lives there now, but the home of, and I will tell you this, Eddie. If I was from any of the beaches of California, Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, Manhattan Beach, you'd be hard-pressed to have me live anywhere else other than those places because those places are absolutely awesome. But what's going to be awesome this weekend, Brickyard 400, a guy that was born actually Huntington Beach, California. He is the driver of the number 38 Ford for Front Row Motorsports. Zane Smith joining me on the program. Coming off of a solid finish, speaking of California, in San Diego, but now it is time for the Brickyard. Zane, first off, welcome to the radio airwaves in Indianapolis. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, let's begin with this. And I know this is kind of the generic question, but I'm always curious of this. I mean, we know here in Indianapolis just what the Indianapolis Motor Speedway means. For you, this will be the third installment of the Brickyard 400. You're no stranger to that oval. But for those of us in Indianapolis, when you come up under the tunnel and you go into it, you feel that juice, you feel that vibe. You go to a ton of racetracks, man. Does Indianapolis mean to you, does it have kind of that same jolt and juice?
Absolutely. NASCAR, I don't know if would love to hear me say this, but, winning at Indy ranks right up there with winning at like the Daytona 500 or it has the prestige that brings. And, I feel like it depends on what your background was. Like if you grew up in open wheel, then, you want to win at Indy really bad. Or if you grew up maybe in like racing on ovals, Daytona might overweigh that. But for me, I grew up racing go-karts, and I really want to make it in NASCAR probably when I was around the age of 8 or so, but at the same time I also really wanted to make it in IndyCar, and I have a lot of friends that ended up in IndyCar now and stuck with open wheel racing, and man, I didn't know what the big track was going to be like, but I raced at Newcastle, Indiana, in go-karts a lot. And I always remember getting the museum tour over at Indy and just dreaming about driving at the big track one day. And then NASCAR kind of spent some years there. Then he switches, but I was one of those guys that was like, man, we need to be, if we're racing Indy, we need to be racing on the oval. and so, just the past couple of years, I mean, it's arguably my favorite racetrack. It's tough, but it's been nice and mean to me. Last year was a little mean to me. I think we were running about 7th or so, and then got wrecked down the backstretch with about 3 laps to go. But it's just been I feel like it suits my driving style. I feel different when I'm at Indy. I enjoy it so much. I have a ton of fun just cruising around the track there. Just an absolutely beautiful facility. The fans are electric. And then what Indy is a little bit different is I feel like you don't have such a narrow front stretch at any other place that we go. And I feel like the backstretch, it feels like you're going really fast. But once you go down the front stretch with the grandstands kind of on both sides, in a sense, and how narrow it is, the sensation of speed is about as high as it gets all year of all the places that we go, in my opinion. So to answer your question, yes, I want to win at Indy probably more than anywhere I want to win all year, and would love to make that happen this weekend.
It's interesting, Zane, because Zane Smith is our guest, by the way. He's on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, the driver of the number 38 Ford for Front Row Motorsports. 17th as a rookie at Indy 2 years ago. The track itself, theoretically, Zane, all 4 corners are the same, 9 degrees, 12 minutes. And in terms of where you guys, you compare it to Bristol or Daytona, certainly. I mean, it's a flat track for all intent and purposes. But a lot of drivers tell me, and I'm curious your thought on this, that even though all four corners are supposedly the same, a lot will tell you that the four corners, each one is totally different. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, like it makes you frustrated because when you look at like an overhead picture, you're like, how is this any different? But it is, all four are totally different. Even the short shoot in between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, it feels different. Like getting into turn 1, I feel like kind of goes back to what I was saying, where your sensation of speed is super high. So I feel like when you get into turn 1, like you're just on edge and it just feels sketchy. And then turn 2, I'm curious to see how it's going to be because they kind of repaved that area and tried to eliminate that bump. But I feel like that was one of my favorite turns in all of racing anywhere I've been. And also one of the sketchiest, but it was super easy to like overdrive it getting into turn 2 or underdrive it. But like if you were exit focused, it would pay you such a reward, which made for a really fun backstretch for us. And so that's turns 1 and 2, and then down into 3, I feel like it's always who can be the most aggressive on corner entry and like create a solid amount of entry shape to make that little short shoot into 4 a good thing for you. And 4 is, you know, there's been many times in IndyCar history, especially at the end of the Indy 500, of just guys that get tight right there, where those that are listening that don't know what tight means, it's where the front turns just kind of, or front tires just kind of give up and it just doesn't want to turn anymore. So like off of turn 2, you're actually like pretty loose, where the back end kind of wants to come around. Off of turn 4, you get pretty tight where the front tires kind of want to give up. And I think that's from just a faster turn 3, and you got to pay that price in turn 4. And so 4 totally different corners, but it certainly makes for a fun lap.
You know, when you look at, you raced ARCA, right? You were an ARCA Rookie of the Year. You've had, you know, massive success, not just in gaining fans, but also in, you know, winning championships in the Truck Series. I remember one time talking to Dario Franchitti when he went over to Cup for a while, and he said, man, going from IndyCar to Cup was like going from a Corvette to a school bus. Now, I'm curious, as somebody who had so much success in trucks, how different is it? I mean, just the balance and the feel of what you're driving as you have cut your teeth in different series within the NASCAR umbrella. How different is the discipline from one series to the next and the feel, if you will?
Yeah, it's, you know, not as much as what you would actually think. To the example you were referencing, I mean, those are 2 completely different race cars and series. Like an IndyCar is just full of just downforce and pretty hooked up, lots of grip, and our stuff, they're pretty heavy cars with a lot of power, and they just don't drive good, and that's kind of by design. Like we want it to be in the driver's hands to where it's on top of the racetrack and flipping and sliding, just a lot to manage, and that's what's provided us some really good finishes and just racing. And so, yeah, with that said, right, I would say before the next gen Cup car came out, like ARCA, Truck, O'Reilly, and Cup, all were like kind of the same. And then once this next gen Cup car came out, which I believe was in 2022, it's kind of just a completely different car than like any of us have ever driven. And there's it shifts different. The steering feels different. How you catch and save the car feels different. Like how you adjust on the car is different. The dirty air moments, which is a big topic in something like IndyCar, is certainly a lot different. And so it's been kind of a learning curve for, I want to say, everyone since it's came out. But with that said, I feel like it's been fun to learn something new, but it's still, I feel like, in the realm of what we've driven in the past. It's still a heavy stock car. It's just, it feels a little bit different when you have a sketchy moment, I guess you can say. But what's crazy is like the amount that we race. We race 38 times a year, and before that, you're racing a ton also. And if you make it to the Cup Series level, I feel like just all the drivers, they learn how to adapt no matter what it is. And it's almost a race of like who can adapt the fastest and be the most successful at it. And so certainly something that we're all battling, but that I feel like especially something new right now with the next gen Cup car is just the attention to detail too. Like a lot of the cars are really similar. So now it comes down to basically the size of your team and the personnel of your team. Myself, I drive for like a smaller team, and you're going up against some big powerhouse teams to where we're trying to come one day. And with this next gen Cup car, we can unload all closer, but you got to make great use of your time and making positive adjustments, because those bigger teams overnight will be able to find out what to do a little bit quicker maybe than what a smaller team can.
Zane, aside from racing, what was your favorite sport growing up?
Racing. I never really knew anything else, to be honest.
Who was your favorite driver? Like when you were growing up, who's the guy that you watched and you're like, man, that's the guy?
Well, from a NASCAR standpoint, I was a big Jimmy Johnson fan. And then from like an IndyCar standpoint, like a big Dan Weldon fan.
That's cool.
Just growing up, and I used to race karts, like I said, a lot, and Dan Weldon would race with us. Well, I was in the young class. I was about 8 years old, but he was at the racetrack, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
He would do the Robopong over in Newcastle at Dismore's place, right? Like he was routinely in that, wasn't he?
Yeah. He would. A lot of those guys, well, not a lot of them. The same handful would actually race a good bit, and like as a kid, like that's just where the odds are stacked against you to make it in the sport. And seeing someone that like is racing on the same track as you and in the same pit area as you, that you're watching and pulling for, and is like a hero to you, is super cool. And so. Yeah, those were certainly my two.
Well, because the reason I ask, no matter what sport it is that people watch, whether it's racing, whether it's an individualized sport like racing, even though I know it's a team sport, but you get what I'm going there. People love rivalries, right? They love, NASCAR. A lot of people will tell you that, the Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison crash that happened in the Daytona 500 and the fight afterwards, when half of the eastern seaboard was in a blizzard, and so they're all watching it, and people are getting introduced to this sport. People love rivalries, and you know this, right? There is this rivalry now, you know it, with Carson Hocevar, who's, like yourself, one of the young rising stars within the sport, and you basically came out and said, look, I just don't like the guy. I don't like the guy. And then they basically sat both of you down in the control chair and said, okay, we're going to work this out. Where do things stand right now? You still don't like him?
Yeah, I certainly don't like him, and it pretty much all about him, just not a fan, but and that's fine. Doesn't like me, and that, I feel like that's fine for our sport to have. I wasn't really like searching for a rivalry. I just a lot of the sport thinks it, and I guess I was the only one that spoke up and said it when I was asked about it. And so
now, does that mean, and I'm not trying to open a wound here, but does that mean that you don't, like, just personality wise, you guys don't mesh, or on the racetrack you don't like him, or both?
Both. Yeah. On the racetrack, we've, I feel like find ourselves like racing around each other, and I've had just like past run-ins. And then off the track, I just don't respect them at all. And so I feel like that's just kind of where it comes from. And that rivalry could live on or whatever. We're both young in our career. I'm not really sure how old he is, but we're both on our third year in the Cup Series, and that's fine to stick around if people enjoy it.
What is it? And I don't mean in this specific case, but I am curious from a racing standpoint. Zane Smith is my guest, going to be in his third Brickyard 400 coming up this weekend. What from a racing standpoint, when you're in the paddock with guys, when you're, whatever it may be, away from being on the track, what things do you look for? What is it about one driver that creates respect and bond versus another?
Well, our sport is really difficult. We're all competing against each other for the same thing, and you got to deal with the same guy all year long. And so, it's different from other sports. Like, if you're playing football, you could have a run-in with somebody, but you're only gonna have to deal with them once or twice, and then you deal with it next year. Well, ours is, you got to be a little bit smarter than that, of picking your battles, because you're going to deal with them next week, and then the following week, and the week after that. And so, it's, I'm just a big believer in, I'll race you exactly how you race me. And I feel like that's where this all started, and it continue to go that way until something changes. But I don't see that changing anytime soon, and that's fine. I don't mind racing that way. It's just not probably my personal preference, but I have no issue with it. And yeah, I'm fine to roll on with it. But that's how I certainly approach race day.
He is 23, by the way. I just looked it up. Carson Hocevar, 23 years old. Brash, you could say that. No question about it. Last thing I wanted to touch on, Zane, and I apologize for you being the one that I asked this to, but you're the first driver that I've talked to since it happened, right? Even though this weekend for the Brickyard, and I know a competitor, right? But there have been few, Zane Smith, that I've watched. I call turn 3 for the Brickyard. I'm one of the play-by-play guys for it, and I can see when somebody just has a natural feel for that racetrack. And Kyle Busch is one that, when I watched him, I know he was a polarizing figure, but he was a natural bend-the-wheel talent. There was no question about it. And obviously we know of the terrible loss from the racing community of Kyle Busch and his passing. But as somebody that was a competitor, for all of you guys, what was just the emotion, not necessarily from the standpoint of as a racer, but just somebody that was that big within your sport, and the loss of it, and now going to a racetrack where he had a ton of success? Yeah,
I mean, it still doesn't feel real, to say the least. But, Kyle was, he will go down as arguably the best race car driver of all time. And especially just in stock car racing, one of the best our sport has ever seen. And, man, there was just no one else like Kyle. And for me, that was maybe not someone in my, when I was pretty young that I pulled for really hard. Like I said, that was probably Jimmy Johnson. But as I became an early teenager, where I was really following it, Kyle was the guy that I pulled for. And that was probably prime Kyle of winning Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and finding a way on Monday too. And it was just insanely good. And I feel like his feedback on the car was just elite. And he was just really good at winning. And I feel like Kyle was the definition of the guy of he's going to race you how you race him. And he stood up for that. And then as I got later in my career, where I was fortunate enough to race against Kyle in the truck series, I'm a big believer, and I'm here today because of Kyle, because we had this battle together during COVID at Charlotte Motor Speedway and the truck series, where I had gotten told to pretty much settle in line behind Kyle, and I had a huge run off of turn 2, and I split Kyle 3 wide and took the lead. And Kyle came on the radio and was like, "Who's in that 21 truck?" And it was me at the time. And I felt like that really put my name on the map. And then we had another really good battle at Texas a few weeks later. I just feel like in his shoes, he didn't have to say that or acknowledge that. He could have just been frustrated and annoyed with it. But instead, he kind of respected it. And that's the Kyle that I pulled for. So that was really cool to kind of see that firsthand. But impacts the sport massively. And we were all just reminded of Kyle with Brexton's win and his micro, and that was really cool. So, I think we're all cheering for Brexton and the success that he has in his racing career. And certainly, I think every win that Brexton will have from here on out, it'll all remind us of what Kyle did and how he impacts the sport, and hope we get to see that with Brexton as well.
Well, Zane, we wish you the best of luck this weekend, and we'll be watching that number 38 Ford. I know your teammate, Todd Gilliland, if I'm not mistaken, as part of the finals of the Bracket Challenge, has $1 million on the line, and I think you should institute a policy that the teammate gets 25% if he wins it. Does that sound good?
I agree. I mean,
yeah, why not?
Exactly, yeah.
Hey, appreciate the time, man. Certainly have a safe run. That's what I always say. We'll be looking forward to watching it on Sunday, and I appreciate the time today.
All right. Thanks, Zane.
All right, Zane Smith joining us here on the Schwab Men's 2-1 Hotline. Upcoming, Debbie Antonelli going to join us. We talked about the WNBA Fever in action tonight, taking on Connecticut. It is an 8 o'clock tip. The pregame for that is at 7:30 tonight. And then it is All-Star Weekend. And by All-Star Weekend, I mean festivities beginning. That takes place the weekend itself, the break Thursday through Sunday. Tuesday, they are back in action, taking on Seattle. And I'm curious, in talking to Debbie Antonelli, about the fact that, there are two ways to look at it. I mean, it feels like the Fever are still, they're starting to round into form of knowing who they are and what it is that they can do well. But at the same time, there have been inconsistencies, and maybe the break is coming at the right time, coming off that road trip and then coming back home. They certainly played well over the weekend. But you want to get this one tonight going into it. Look forward to talking to Debbie about that coming up in just a couple minutes. I love the fact, Eddie, with Zane Smith, I love the fact when I ask him about the Carson-Hocevar rivalry, no backing down there, right?
None. Once you're on the record, you got to stay on the record, Jake. You can't back down from that.
Just doesn't like him. I just don't like him.
I do appreciate the candor.
Of course. And you know what?
Also appreciate the fact that I didn't have to hit the dump button.
Yeah.
You know how some of these NASCAR drivers can get.
You almost had to dump it or hit the dump button with Will Fleming earlier, didn't you?
No.
He was close.
I don't think so.
I get, certain words, if you say them independently, it's a bad word, but if you pair it with something else, it's not a bad word, right? And so I think he went with that route of it. You got that grin on your face again here.
I do.
Would you like to share why it is that you're grinning?
I didn't know I was grinning.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were confirming that you do indeed have the grin. Every once in a while, you'll look to the side and you're looking at something, and then you look up and you get this big grin on your face, and then I wonder what's going on.
I'm just in a group chat, and the group chat is having a good time right now.
Oh, little inside jokes, is that right?
Yeah. Bunch of buddies that I went to school with and in fantasy football league,
we're doing a group chat here. Did you realize?
No.
Just the two of us talking, and you mentioned, by the way,
have you still not figured out AS?
Yesterday, I've not figured out AS. So recap for those that are just joining the show here at the noon hour on a Wednesday. Thank you for listening to Query & Company. The origin of the brain teaser you did for me with AS. Tell me that again. How this came about and what it means?
I can't remember exactly how it all came about, but it was just an organic conversation with Nick Gardner, the Butler Radio Network analyst, and we came up with a band name, and AS is the abbreviation of the band name.
But you said that the name somehow applies to me or something about me, right?
Correct. You call yourself this.
Astutely sexy, right?
No, you got half of it.
Sexy, right? Is that right? Always sexy?
No.
I got the second half correct, right?
Yes.
Not anonymously sexy.
No.
Because, ubiquitously perhaps, right? I don't recall this. And I've said this about there are a lot of things that I say about I love me some me, so I have a lot of different ways in which I give myself credit, but this was not one of them that I specifically recall.
Jake, there's Different types of mediums in media.
Different kinds of mediums, you said?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a hint for the first word.
Oh.
Antithesis. That's a good one. That's a word that you use a lot.
I am, in fact, audio sexy. Right?
You're close. You're very close.
Is it not audio sexy?
Audibly.
I'm that too.
That was the word.
Can you, before we get to Debbie Antonelli, because that would be very uncomfortable, can you just simply record this real quick? And we'll use this for...
I'm always recording, Jake.
We'll use it for bumpers and whatnot?
I'm always recording.
Hi there, I'm Jake Query. And every day from 10 until 1 Monday through Friday, I find myself to be audibly sexy. How's that? Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes when I get up in the wintertime and I've got the Barry White thing going on, that's when I should record that.
Do you want me to clip that from our live streams and send it to you? That way you can tweet that out. Just like reminder.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
That actually, that's my own little confidence booster. So I look right at the YouTube thing and clip that. Debbie Antonelli, very interesting comments in terms of Caitlin Clark being a disruptor, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, but could it be a bad way? We'll get to the bottom of that and talk with her next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Eddie, did you see that Darius Rucker said that he is contemplating retiring, but if he does so, then they're going to do one more Hootie and the Blowfish tour before they hang it up?
I did not see that, no. And apparently, Jake, my friends who were in this group chat that I was just sidebarred with or sidetracked with had no idea what station I was on. I'm like, how
That's
could you
the
guys
least
not
surprise-
know?
These are good friends you've got, right?
I know, especially one of them. I think he's listening right now. I'm surprised he would know. He's one of my best friends. I thought we were.
Listen, I don't know if you know this or
good
not,
terms.
but Shannon actually thinks I work at Crew Car Wash.
Well, see, at least she knows you're on the radio. She just knows you as the guy that's before JMV.
It used to be, right?
Well, technically still before JMV, just hours before.
Joining us now, by the way, on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, the Indiana Fever in action tonight, taking on Connecticut. 8 o'clock tip. You can hear the pregame at 7:30. Debbie Antonelli, our friend, of course, and ESPN analyst, also Indiana Fever analyst, joining us. Debbie, I'm going to begin with a weird question for you, which I know is surprising, but did you ever watch, certainly you're familiar with Robin Williams, the late, great Robin Williams. I don't know whether you watched Mork and Mindy or Mrs. Doubtfire or, Good Will Hunting, a fabulous talent, but you are familiar with him, correct?
I've seen all those movies, yes, I know, and the show.
Okay.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
So David Letterman, and I've told this story on the air before, but I'll make it very brief. David Letterman has always talked about when he was working at the Comedy Store as a young comic, and they're all just plotting through, writing their jokes and working with each other. And then one day this new comic arrives, and it was Robin Williams. And he said, this guy arrived, and it was like a hurricane. The rest of us were just a little spring shower, and this guy was a hurricane of energy and force, and it turned the entertainment industry on its ear in the late 70s and early 80s. And they all just were fortunate they were able to benefit from the things that Robin Williams brought and the attention it brought to the rest of them. You had some interesting comments in your hometown newspaper, in the Charleston Post and Courier, about Caitlin Clark. And it seems from reading the article that you feel that is the similar effect that Caitlin Clark has had here on the WNBA. It is this hurricane storm force in a league that otherwise had a lot of really individualized rain showers. Is that a fair way of saying it?
I think that's a great analogy, Jake, and that's why I always say yes when you ask me to come on your show, because I know it's always going to be interesting and entertaining for me to be a part of whatever you're talking about. But yes, I call it Clarkonomics, what we are experiencing. Caitlin is the greatest disruption in the history of our sport. Doesn't say she's the greatest player, that she's not determined yet, right? We don't know that. But what we do know is the economic forces that she has brought and changed the game, changed the way we view it, changed the way we sell it, changed the way people invest. We needed a disruption in the marketplace. The LIV Tour disrupted the PGA Tour. Tiger Woods disrupted the PGA Tour. Those kinds of disruptions make people take a pause and consider, maybe we will want to get interested. Maybe we do want to check that out. Maybe I am going to buy a ticket or a jersey or some merchandise. Maybe I am going to tune in and watch. And that's not to disparage anybody that came before her. It's not a disclaimer about other players. It's just about where we are and the synergies that have all come together at the same time to create what I call Clarkonomics. I think it's a great definition for what we're experiencing.
And there's no denying it, because, and I recall, Debbie, where I was on the road for an IndyCar race when I was first introduced to Caitlin Clark, not physically speaking, but I was watching the women's NCAA tournament, and, I had heard of this dynamic player at Iowa. But then you're seeing it, and it reminded me, truthfully, of when Steph Curry took Davidson to the Sweet 16 when he was in college, because you're seeing a player that is just doing things that you're wow. I mean, this player seemingly is putting this team on their back. That's no disrespect to the Iowa roster. But for that reason, everyone became well aware of it long before she got to the WNBA, and here we are. Now, here is my question. That is seemingly indisputable what we're talking about, but does it create a balancing act that has to be done because of the extra scrutiny that comes from a coaching staff to the schematics of the way that you're playing a game, to how you're using her, to areas where maybe you're not playing well in a game. Does it bring extra attention and focus and spotlight and interrogation of your roster and your franchise that the Clarkonomics can then become, I'm not going to say detrimental, but additionally challenging?
I think this is what we've all wanted. I mean, I know my entire 30-plus years in the game, we have tried to advance the game so that people would be interested, so that our marketing and promotions would be around sending people to games. It would be about the product. This is how good our product is. Come and experience it. I think all of that. And I also think that because of the lens, it forces us all to be better. I got to be better at my job. There's more people paying attention. There's more scrutiny. Everybody has to be better at their job. And for players, from their perspective, I think it has made our game better because the money is higher. The contracts are different. And if you don't produce, you're not going to make the kind of money that you think that you deserve. So the analytics, all the things that come with it, it makes us all better. It's good for the game. Is there scrutiny? Yes. Is there more scrutiny than we've ever experienced? Yes. But we've also never had our game spotlighted across all the different platforms, across sports, across genders, across everything that we're experiencing. And it's okay if Caitlin Clark is the driver and the disruptor that makes all this happen. People call her Taylor Swift of women's basketball. You can call her whatever you want, but there are definitely economic factors behind proving what we're saying. And so, yes, it forces us to be better. It forces more scrutiny. All of it comes together, but we all get to experience it and help elevate the game. And the product is the narrative always, Jake. You know I say that every time.
One of the things, Debbie Antonelli, our guest, one of the things that I truly admire about Caitlin Clark is that between the lines, Debbie, she seemingly is, I'm not going to say unaware, but unaffected by the additional scrutiny. She's been under it for a long time, right? So it does not seem, she seems immune to that pressure. But there are times where I wonder if she is also immune to understanding how it can impact and put pressure on those that are around her. Is that me being too critical?
I think it's fair. I think there's good and bad, right? Some people's platforms around Caitlin and being a part of the Fever have been able to be elevated and grown, maybe unlike other places, because you are experiencing the Clarkonomic effect of everything that happens in our game. But, here's the thing that people just seem to discount, and they shouldn't. Do you know how hard it is to do what Caitlin is doing on the floor as a basketball player? She is the toughest guarded in the league, so she gets the best and most contact. She gets the long and changing defender every game. You got to be able to have incredible handle and range that she has to be able to play in the ball screen offense that she plays in. And people forget this part of it, and it sounds so Pollyanna, but it's not. Every single player in the league has dreamt about an opportunity to do this, and they've all grown up knowing that they could be a pro and play professional women's basketball in our country. So the work and the grind and the sweat equity and every dribble and every shot is under scrutiny and there's pressure with it. Yes, but this is what we've wanted. So you can't discount how much work has been put in by every single player on the Fever roster and every player in the league. We're just talking about the Fever. So yes, it's imperative that people realize how much work, how much time, how much effort, how much scheming, how much time the coaches pour over trying to put your players in the best positions to succeed. All of that matters.
Debbie, as crazy as it sounds, Debbie Antonelli is our guest here. On Friday night when she had the 45-point 10-assist game, I mean, historic numbers for any basketball player, let alone, WNBA numbers we'd never seen to that level, just what she was doing. I thought the best play of that game was in the final minute when she runs back and, to use your term, she's a disruptor on a break that Seattle is getting, and she made a defensive play to not just interrupt a breakaway layup, but also to get possession back for Indiana. I thought that was a remarkable play and showed a great basketball instinct. But in that game with her numbers, again, 10 assists to go with 45. The next night, the way that they were able to control the game that they did with Kelsey Mitchell leading the way from a scoring standpoint and Caitlin Clark being the facilitator that she can be. Which version was the better version, not of Caitlin Clark, but of the Indiana Fever?
Yeah, I don't know. That's 80 minutes of really good basketball. I mean, Stephanie White will probably be, and staff would probably say the first half of the New York game wasn't as strong. But, you take on the last place team in the league and you beat them by 3, and you got to get ready the next night and put on another performance like that. Those 80 minutes right there, Jake, makes everybody think that, boy, if they get the right matchup in the playoffs, I'm just saying, everyone worries about defense, and they should. And Coach White is going to worry about defense first. But watching Caitlin, Aaliyah, and Kelsey click like that with the 3 of them all there together and the others doing their jobs and playing their roles at a very high level, that's a lot of offense. So I sleep easy at night because I love offense, and I know we can score. And it's going to be really hard to score with us. We might give up a few points here and there, but, man, the way they played over that weekend was pretty special.
Obviously, one left before the All-Star break. That is tonight against Connecticut. Is the break coming at the right or wrong time for the way the team's playing?
Oh, man, let's see after tonight, I don't think they'll be sleeping on Connecticut. I just had Connecticut on Sunday in Phoenix, and they'll be healthy tonight. They'll get Sanaya Rivers back, who matters for them. Brittany Griner is always an issue because of her 6'9" frame inside, and she constantly causes different pressures on the rim on both ends of the floor. So I think it comes at a good time. Players need rest. They always need rest at this point in the season versus reps. So I would say it's at a good time, but I would not be sleeping on Connecticut tonight.
Rest for broadcasters as well. All-Star break beginning again after tonight, tomorrow through Sunday for the WNBA. Debbie Antonelli will be able to enjoy it as well. Debbie, appreciate the time as always, all right?
You got it, man. Thank you so much. And I won't be in town when Darius is here in August, so I hope you have a good time at the show.
All right, I'm telling you, when I went to Hootie and the Blowfish in Nashville, best advice Debbie gave me. She said, you got to go. We went, and it was awesome. We'll come back. We'll find out what J&B's got warming up for his program that begins at 3 o'clock today. That's brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, 317-353-2141.
listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Indeed, All-Star break arriving for the WNBA, again, after tonight's game for the Fever, taking on Connecticut at 8 o'clock. Thanks earlier today to Will Fleming, by the way, for joining the show on short notice. Red Sox in Major League Baseball going for a franchise record 15th straight win today, and then they can break it. They have a doubleheader with number 16 if they were to win and sweep both tonight.
You know what we learned in that convo, Jake?
What's that?
Number one, he knows every single pitch in baseball. So very confident fella. Very smart as well. So he educated us a little bit. And he gave us insight on what an even count is in baseball.
2-1, right?
I think so.
I think he agreed that 2-1 is an even count.
Yeah, you can go to my Twitter at @EddieGarrison_ for that little interaction.
Zane Smith, by the way, also thanks for joining us. Debbie Antonelli. J&B joining us now to find out what he's got cooking up, warming up for his big program today at 3 o'clock. And what's shaping up to be a busy time getting set for the Brickyard 400. John, what's cooking today?
Oh, a little bit of Pacer conversation, a little bit of fever. And you're speaking of the Hauler Parade is tomorrow, by the way, for the Brickyard over at Main Street Speedway. I'll be at Speedway City Garage tomorrow, which is an awesome place right there on Main Street.
What time will you be out there?
3 until 6, probably before that and probably a little bit after that, knowing how I work, how I operate. That's probably what happens. But I can't wait. Jeff Matthews has been a longtime friend of the show.
Oh,
and
I
what
love
they've
Jeff.
done on Main Street. Yeah, so what they've done on Main Street is awesome. That place is going to be spectacular. And the Hauler Parade will also happen right there before us. I think Doug Bowles is going to slide by and join me on site coming up tomorrow, too. So it should be a blast.
Yeah, it should definitely be fun. The Pacers talk, too, in the final minute here. I saw we're still on LeBron watch, right? If you had to guess, we'll be on LeBron watch until when?
Yeah, well, until he feels satisfied that he and Rich Paul are squeezing enough of the interest out of this, I guess. I don't care. I'm not on LeBron watch, but yeah, I guess the rest of the NBA is waiting on his decision so they can make a schedule, which is embarrassing as hell. But whatever.
It is, because the guy, he's 41 years old, but it's amazing at that age that he still is able to draw that kind of attention, I guess. All right, 3 o'clock today, J&V will have you. You're in studio, is that right?
You got it, buddy. I'll see you in a bit.
All right, John will be in here, and he will be in studio. Then again, Hauler Parade, Main Street Speedway tomorrow, which will be a ton of fun. Again, thanks to Will Fleming for joining us, Zane Smith, Debbie Antonelli as well. Eddie, you got big plans for later today?
I do have big plans later today.
And that would be, I would assume, even though you said you're not working it, checking out the Fever tonight, 8 o'clock pregame at 7:30. We will discuss that tomorrow. Adam Alexander, the voice of NASCAR from a television standpoint, will also be on the program tomorrow. Tony East, in addition to that. So we will be back with you at 10 o'clock tomorrow and getting set for Eddie and I now heading over to the Speedway to pick up our credentials, which will be
together.
Fun. Not together. That is correct. But I thank all of you for listening today to Query and Company.